What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fear Alchemist. I'm your host, Ben Harris, and today's episode is going to be something about the harsh truth of entrepreneurship, the journey that it is, how hard it can be, um, the scary, vulnerable truth that a lot of people, including myself, don't want to admit. So, I haven't prepared anything for this. I'm just riffing. There's just something on my heart that feels called to speak on this. So that's exactly what we're going to do because I recently posted something on Instagram. Well, not even recently, it was like September 15th of 2023. So 2.5 months ago. And the title of the reel, it's just me typing on a computer. And then the text on the screen says, I was too afraid and prideful to admit this until now. And this is what the caption says: being an entrepreneur is hard. Like, it'll humble you like nothing else and put you on your ass type of hard. Running your own business is one of the bravest things you can do because you can't hide from your own weaknesses. It will always reflect the truth back to you. And sometimes, or a lot of times, that hurts. Whether it's the lack of revenue coming in, crunching numbers, formulating a marketing strategy, etc., it's all on you. You can't blame a company or a boss for your lack of results. It's you, in all caps. It is you. You're responsible for it all. I've had many moments of insecurity and still do. There are times where I wonder why I'm doing this. Why don't I just go get a quote unquote normal job and say I gave it my best? My ego likes to tell me I wouldn't have to deal with so much pressure. That might be true, but then I remember why I quit that job in the first place. I craved this freedom to do whatever I wanted. I was eager for this responsibility and pressure to succeed no matter what it takes. Going back to my corporate job won't make my life any easier. I can either invest my time into building someone else's dream or creating my own. The same day to day stresses will always be there. So why not use my time to build what I want, to do what I was put on this earth to do? Entrepreneurship may be hard at times, but I wouldn't want it any other way. It forces me to become a better version of myself every single day. I've had a hard time admitting my struggles because I've wanted you to think that I have it all figured out. I didn't want anyone to think that I still have these doubts creeping in. But I know that it's important to share these moments with you. I don't want the pressure of being perfect. When I first quit my job, I had big dreams and expectations. I thought I could make $1 million within my first year of business. Well, I'm guessing you know that that didn't happen. And I'm 4 years in and finally making more than my previous corporate salary. It's taken a lot to get here and I still have lots of improvements to make, but I'm damn grateful that I made the move. And that's the end of the caption. So I imagine you can understand why so many people have resonated with this. Like, this reel keeps getting random pushes in the algorithm, and people are really resonating with it and leaving lots of comments. And one of the comments that struck me was like, "Oh, like, thank you for saying this. I sometimes feel so guilty for, not making six figures in 6 months. Like, I just quit my job and, I'm not seeing the quick results as I see so many other people say or preach about." And so I've just been feeling called, to be honest, to be more honest with you guys, which is ultimately being honest with myself. Seeing the fear of being seen is really, me having the resistance to acknowledge and expose certain things. And so the best way that I know how to do that is to talk about it. And it's funny because I did this almost exactly a year ago. Um, and that episode was called something about, my limiting beliefs about money and success. And as soon as I did that, I had like this big breakthrough and huge swing of momentum and like success. So who knows if that will happen this time? I have a feeling it will. It feels like around this time of year, there's always that seasonal change. Uh, you know, that's what the winter's for, to let things die and to let go of what doesn't serve us and to sit in that darkness and to see what wants to come through. So we can bring that to life in the spring and to create it and to give it to the world. And I'll tell you guys, like, I felt a lot of resistance the past few months. It feels like I have I mean, the best way I can describe it, because I'm still going through it, but I've worked through some of it already, is that like I've been doing things that worked, and I just have kept wanting to do them because that's the smart thing or the right thing, or because that will work again, or that will make me the most money, that will make me feel the most safe, that will grow my audience, that will get more clients, whatever the reason is, right? Is like, okay, well, this thing's worked, so it's going to work again. And like, truthfully, it hasn't. The past few months have felt really forced of me doing the quote unquote smart thing, doing what, coaches tell me, doing what gurus tell me, courses tell me, people on the internet who seem to have it all figured out more than me. And what I've come to realize is really no one has the answer except me. And no one can give me the answer except I go within myself. It's between me and God, right? It's between me and connecting with source, with spirit, with the divine. And I have a feeling a lot of you are in this same place where it's um, learning conceptual teachings isn't going to do it for you anymore, right? As it feels like you've hit a wall, you've hit this this ceiling. It feels like you just keep bumping up against it no matter how hard you try, and you're just stuck. And I completely relate to this. I mean, it's like no matter how hard you try, you feel like, man, like why isn't it working? I swear I'm doing all the right things that people tell me to do. But the thing is like you're not supposed to do what people are telling you to do. And that's what I've learned right now in my own life and business, is that like I have to follow my own heart. Like it's that simple. Like I have to connect to that, to my soul, to my higher self, and what God wants me to do, what God wants me to be, how I'm supposed to serve and present my gift and serve the collective, this human race. And if I just keep getting in my own head and ego of what's the smart thing or the right thing to do, or even the most strategic thing to do, like often we think the most strategic thing to do is just it's a way of it's a smart way the mind uses to conceal what we're really afraid of doing. And so I know that I've lost my way in that way of like, I know because when I connect with my heart, I know it doesn't make sense to the logical mind a lot of the time, and it doesn't make sense to other people's logical mind. But I know that's what I'm being asked to do, and I think that's probably what you're being asked to do as well, is to forget the logical mind and step into your heart, and that's scary. And that's why when you connect to your heart and you feel this like burning desire, this passion, it's equally as terrifying. And those are the things your soul is meant to do. Your spirit is speaking through you to do that thing. Like that scary feeling, that resistance, that hesitation is the thing you're supposed to do because that's what your heart is desiring, even if it doesn't make sense. So this is your invitation to meet that place. Like, and the only way you can do it is to go through that. Like, I don't know any other way. You can't avoid it. Like, like I know most people avoid things until you can't avoid it anymore. And you might be at that point. That's definitely, you know, I'm at that point in a certain way, but it's still always a choice, right? You can still fight against it. You can still try and resist. But as you probably know, what you resist persists. So I have, man, I didn't know I was going to say this on this podcast, but I have, yeah, I'm going to say this. I have an invitation for you where I've decided to do a retreat at the end of December. It's going to be over New Year's, and I can feel my heart beating and like, woof, like growing and getting warm as I say this. So I know that's the right thing, but I'm also scared too, I'll be honest. And it's for people who are feeling really, really crazy and courageous. For the people that I've just described, essentially, this experience, this feeling that we're having, like deep down, you know that the logical stuff just isn't working anymore. You know, doing typical mindset work isn't cutting it. You know, you have this calling inside of you that doesn't make sense, but you know it's right. You feel drawn to sit with your fear and see what it has to show you. You know that learning more conceptual teachings isn't what you need. It's a feeling that you're searching for. and that probably scares you. But you need to meet yourself and your fear at a deeper level than you ever have before. You need to face what you've been avoiding, because only then you will be free. Only then will you be able to open up, feel, and receive the love that you crave and desire. So saying yes to this invitation is saying yes to yourself. It's saying yes to God, to source, to let the let that power, which really is just love, like that source, that you know what I'm talking about, like course through you. Like you are a steward of these gifts, and of, like, you wouldn't be listening to this. Like you're listening to a podcast about fear. Like that's crazy, man. Like, and you do have a calling. So this is, I guess, an invitation, a prompt, an urge for you to answer that call. And it's saying yes to your biggest, bravest, and boldest parts of you. And I had a realization this morning where I haven't journaled on this yet, but I had a prompt come up where I was like, Ben, stop looking for the things that are going wrong. Stop trying to fix things. Because I know I personally, myself as a human, doesn't need to be fixed. But in business and in this organizational structure, I've been doing that instead of looking at like what's right, instead of focusing on my powerful self. And so I think that's what this really is, right? And honestly, that's scary. Sometimes it's easier just to nitpick and stay where we're at, and stay comfy in this just enough zone. Like you're doing just enough to not fail. You're doing just enough to get by, but you're sick of that. Like you want to be more, you want to do more. And it's not just like a big number, millions thing. It's this feeling, this calling that you know that you're capable of so much more. You know, you're put here on this planet to do something more or different, more meaningful, more fulfilling than you are doing right now. So this is my invite to you, that if you're one of those people who is just feeling that warm buzz, that pulse in your body, in your heart, like this is for you. And so I still, and this is what sounds crazy, and like it might sound crazy to you, but I don't need to explain it, because you just know it's for you. Like you know in your body and your soul that this is calling to you. So I don't know what I'm gonna like how I'm going to structure this as far as like having you guys sign up, but if you follow me on Instagram, um, reply to me on Instagram and say that, yo, Ben, I listened to your podcast, and this offer you described is really calling to me. From what I know so far, I'm still letting it come in and clarify itself, but for sure it's a retreat, and this is going to be, oh man, this is going to be the most powerful retreat I've ever done. And it's going to, this isn't for everybody, you know, this is for the people who are really willing to sit with their fear. And ultimately, this is for the world changers. This is for the leaders of the new world, for people who really want to accept their self leadership. And I invite you to come on this journey with me, because like I'm going on it too. So it's also going to be more than a retreat. There's also going to be a coaching aspect to it, which is going to be 6 months. So if you feel like joining this retreat and this initiation, and walking through your fears and becoming the most powerful version of you you've ever been, to be seen, because it is your duty to be seen. Like there's so many people who are afraid of being their authentic selves and sharing what's on their heart and being vulnerable and claiming your power, like your genius, because that's what is going to be required of you, and the courage to be disliked. Man, there's so many things that are just holding us back from being our brightest, most brilliant selves. And like you're gonna have to make people uncomfortable. Like damn straight. Like let's go. It's time. Like I'm calling you out right now. Like let's go. So um it's time, y'all. It's time to um unleash our power, our joy, our fullest expression. And no more hiding, no more running. It's time to expose yourself in the best way, in the most loving way. And so email me, hit me up on Instagram, or I'm thinking maybe I'll put a link in the show notes of this too. So go look for a link, and if there's one there, Actually, I'll just put my email. So I'll put my email in the show notes. And so if this is calling to you, send me an email. This is for 6 people. So it's obviously space is limited, but I know the right exact people are flowing in. If it's you, you're feeling it, the feeling right now. So I encourage you to feel that feeling fully and answer that call and trust yourself. And even if, you're not coming on this specific journey, is I know you're resonating with a level of this in your own way, right? Of like, we're all like, I just know like we're all being asked to step up right now. It feels like this is being channeled through me. Like, this is starting to make a lot more sense. So, this is just a complete riff, right? Like, and I feel like this is me tapping into my heart, right? This is me letting source and God work through me. Like, yeah, like I said, everything's been really calculated. Um, and not that that's wrong, but it's like I know I've reached the ceiling of that current level of being and thinking. So, like, I had this vision the other week where I saw this ripple, and like, in order to reach the next ripple, I know I need to meet my fear to the places that I'm afraid to go because I can only lead people to where I've been. And so, like, I've just been having the feeling to let go of that, logic, strategic, calculated way of thinking. And like, I've been doing more Instagram lives, just popping on, seeing what comes through, and also doing live coaching. Because whenever I step into my gift, into my heart, like things just start to flow. And I have this acronym that's been really helping me. And the acronym is HOPE, HOPE, and it stands for help one person every day. And to me, that really just stands for stepping into my gifts. Like, I'm not waiting for someone to validate me. I'm not waiting for an invitation. I'm not waiting for someone to pay me. I'm not waiting for a stage. Like, I'm creating my own fucking stage. Oh, it feels so good to say. like like I am it right now. I have this voice, I have this mic, I have a platform, like, and we all do. And we can all step up in this way. Like, stop waiting for permission. Like, it's time right now to do it. And I can just feel like I am lit up right now because I have been scared to come into the space without a plan, without, notes, without a script. But look, like, this is how, like, I can feel the most powerful stuff surging through me and delivering it to you in the ways that you need to hear. And so I know there's something for you to step into your heart. And again, like, that's not going to make logical sense, and that's the whole point. Is like we're being asked to do it in our own way. And I recently even unfollowed everybody on Instagram but one person, who was Belle, my partner, my love. And I know the download I got from that was like, I'm giving my power away to these people that I follow, whether they're friends, whether they're family, whether they're people that I look up to. Is like they're all distorting my vision. And it doesn't mean that I don't love them or care for them, but it's like my energy was like out, like reaching out instead of going within, and to listen to my own voice, my own wisdom, and to be connected to, the God source wisdom. Um, and I can already feel that it's made a huge difference, like tapping into my own knowing, my own power, my own source of infinite intelligence. Um, so this was way different than I thought this might go. Um, but there was one thing I wanted to tell you guys about. Like, this was definitely supposed to come through in this way for everybody. Um, but the whole thing about entrepreneurship, like, it is a spiritual journey. That is one thing for sure. I feel like entrepreneurship, parenthood, and romantic relationship, those three things are the ultimate trifecta of, it'll just always reflect back to you. You can't run, you can't hide, especially when you're conscious and aware. And it's actually a gift. Like, all those triggers are teachers, and it presents to you, like, where you're not free. And that's what triggers, and that's what fear is. Like, fear is revealing where you're not free. It's showing, like, every time I tense up or have hesitation or have a trigger or anxiety, I know I'm not free in that area. And that doesn't mean I have to like become free in all areas tomorrow, like it's okay to have some of that unresolved, like, you know, but at the same time to have like some urgency of approaching those things. And like, so whether you're thinking about it or you're already on the journey of entrepreneurship or solopreneurship or whatever you want to call it, starting a business, like to live your life on purpose, like share your gifts with the world, like that's all what we're meant to do. So maybe you're just at the beginning of like, yo, Ben, I don't have a business yet. Like I haven't started. Like that's okay. Like this is your call. This is your time to stop fucking waiting and do it. Like ultimately I'm just so sick of people saying, this is my pet peeve of saying like, it's not the right time. It's not the right time. It's not the right time. I'm like, yo, like, of course there is a timing um, element to everything. Like that is true. Like I believe in divine timing, but at the same time, like how long have you been saying that to yourself? Like, is it really not the right timing? Or are you just telling yourself that to avoid doing the thing? And it's like, so like if you've been saying it's not the right time, you're waiting for a better moment, for more money, for more time, for more space, for your schedule to not be as stressful, like whatever the reason is, for your kids to get older, for um, life to be not so busy and hectic, there's always going to be something. And so it's like, stop waiting because that is just your fear's way of protecting you and procrastinating and not doing the thing. So I invite you, I encourage you, I'm calling you out to stop saying it's not the right time. And I would encourage you to be honest with yourself of, do I want to do this thing or do I not want to do it? And if I want to do it, then say, okay, I don't want to do it and I'm scared. Cool. At least you're honest with yourself. Or say, no, I don't want to do it. Don't just be truthful and honest with yourself of, do I want to do this thing or don't I? And I kind of plan on coming on this episode and telling you more of my story about leaving my job. Because I've been asked a lot about that recently on podcasts. And I feel like that might have something to do with, this. I just feel like so many people are in transition, or at least people that are coming into my path, into my world. And that's kind of what I mentioned about this time of year, right? Like there's this death, there's this letting go, there's this transition, and especially with the new year coming, of like really stepping into your vision of like not just the next year, but your entire life, and really tapping into like what your heart wants, which, like I mentioned earlier, is directly correlated with what you fear, because your soul is speaking to you through that resistance and through that fear. And when you listen to that and you have these big visions, um, that's what your heart is asking you to do. So I'll tell you about that in a moment, but like I'm having just another question to ask you all, right? Like as we come up on this new year, I feel like a lot of you don't know what you actually want. Um, and I'll be honest, like I've had a hard time knowing that too. And a big reason why we don't do that is because we're afraid of knowing. Because once we admit and we're honest of what we want, then we become accountable to ourselves, right? Then it's like, ooh, it becomes real. Then there's an expectation. Then we could lose it all. Then, it's like, if I don't name it, then I won't be disappointed. So we just never really access our truth in that way. And like our true, like heart's desire, not just like not like rationalizing the feeling of, I want this much money, like not what you think or you should do a goal in that way, but truly like, what is your heart? Like tap into your heart. Like, what is that thing that you want? What is that thing? Not that you just want to make you feel better from a scarce place, but what is the thing that is just truth, the thing that you're meant for and that you've been hiding from? Because, you know, shit might change. You might have to change an identity, lose some people, change your life, move cities, quit a job. I don't know, right? There's lots of things that come up with that, but I'm asking you, and really you're asking yourself to be so honest. Like, if it was impossible to fail, what would you do? If you could be anything in the world, like, who would you be if you weren't afraid? I feel like that's the real intention, right? Of like, who would you be like if you didn't hesitate, if there was no self-doubt and insecurity stopping you from saying, from expressing, from being your brightest, most brilliant, beautiful self? Tap into that feeling. What does that person look like? How do they feel? What are you doing? Like, that's who you are and that's who you're meant to be. And you just need to remove the stuff that's in the way, which is your fear, which is your limiting belief, it's your doubt. And every single limitation is rooted in some fear. So, like, this is why I'm such a big believer in my work. Like, I see it every single day, multiple times a day, that fear is the ultimate debilitator, it's the ultimate block. And you can pretend that it's not, but you're just avoiding it. Like, you have to go through it. Like, you have to meet your fear. You have to learn how to navigate and move through it, or you'll continue to live in stagnancy. You'll continue to be stuck. You'll be suffering or struggling, whatever that looks like for you, until you learn how to move through your fear. And that's the whole point of like what I teach. So go download my free resources. There's a ton in the show notes. Go get the Fear Alchemy course. It's only $297 and you get a discount for the podcast. So I'm giving you all the tools to move through your fear. So please go do that, because there are so many resources available to you. Um, and remember, like, the old way of things that may have been working aren't going to continue to work for the way that where you're being asked to go. And I might have already mentioned this or touched on this a little bit, right? Of like doing things in a certain way and feeling so forced and trying to do it. But I know I've reached, kind of like what I said about the ripple, I've reached my capacity or my limit. And to break through that limit, that ceiling, is there's a new way that's coming in. And I have to be willing to let something old go, and which is scary, and tapping into my heart and all that stuff. But that's the whole point. Um, and so just know, like, if you feel like something isn't working, or it's taking too long, or whatever that thing is, like, there's probably something you're not looking at, or you feel like it's not aligned for you, like, so stop looking at what isn't, like, what's going wrong, and maybe look at like what's going right in your life and tap into more of that energy of like, and maybe it's not happening all the time, right? But there are those moments where like, well, this feels so easy and in flow and lined, and you feel like sparked and you feel alive and your heart is lit up. And that doesn't mean there's not an absence of fear or resistance, but you move through that, you alchemize that, and you're in this state of like bliss and flow. Like, remember those moments, like when it just feels good and safe and natural. Like, look at those moments and collect those and maybe journal on them and think about, oh, like, what am I doing right here? Like, what did I do? How did I follow my intuition? Maybe I was doing the things that scared me. So tap into that and see what comes up for you. And on that same note, I know I'm doing a challenge, a 21-day challenge in January. We start on January 11th, but you can go sign up for it now. It's called Friend Your Fear. So a 21-day challenge, Friend Your Fear. You can go sign up for it in the description, in the show notes. And it's as simple as it sounds. Like, we're going to do this scary, uncomfortable stuff every single day, so you can learn how to turn fear and self-doubt into your greatest strength. It's that simple. Like, embrace discomfort and conquer the things that scare you in 21 days. So if having some fun with fear and in community and investing in yourself in the new year to get unstuck and to get some momentum, this is for you. So come have some fun with us and sign up for that link in bio. And holy crap, y'all, I feel like I don't know where this podcast is going. This is definitely kind of all over the place, but also it also makes so much sense. And back to the story of when I was leaving my 9-to-5 job, I feel like we've covered a lot of the concepts I wanted to cover about the journey. Because that moment reminds me a lot of the moment I'm in right now. Like, when I quit my job, it didn't make any sense. I didn't have a business that was making revenue. Like, I really did not have any revenue. There was zero money coming in. I didn't even know what my business was. I wasn't coaching yet, but I just had this feeling to do it. And it didn't make any sense. And the people around me were like, Ben, what are you thinking? Like, and rightfully so. People told me not to do it. Like, really, it was from the outside looking in, it was this stupid, silly idea. But I'm so glad I did it. Like, no one else could have told me to do it except me. And one of the questions that helped me do it was the question of, what would you do if it was impossible to fail? Like, what would you do if there's no fear? Like, if fear wasn't stopping you? And when I got asked that question, I was like, well, duh, like I'd leave my job. Like, if it was impossible to fail and like I didn't feel fear, I would do this thing because I knew I'd be successful. And so, and from that leap of faith, I left in September, I think September of 2019. And I remember what made me feel safe to take that leap of faith was I had I was earning like passive income through cryptocurrency, through Bitcoin. And I was like, okay, well, at least I have this to fall back on if nothing else happens, in the next 6 months or whatever. And about a couple months after I quit my job, I found out that that investment that I made lost was a scam. So luckily, I did have some money saved, but that initial $40,000 investment that I made was gone. So my safety net was completely eviscerated. It was gone. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? Um, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And it was terrifying. But at the same time, I had this feeling that, everything's going to be okay. Keep trusting, keep moving, keep going one step in front of the other, and you will come out of this. And we fast forward into March of 2020. And, up until this moment, I was still feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. But fast forward into March 2020, that's when the fear guy came in. And it was just like, boom, like lightning came in. I just knew. And I was in a meditation slash prayer. And I said, is this the thing that I should do? I just got chills once I asked that question and a bit emotional because I knew that that's what I was supposed to do. And again, like it didn't make any sense. Like to be a fear coach, like I don't have credibility in that. Like I don't have some certification. Like this is at the time I was just talking a lot about goals and just trying to be like general positivity and self-awareness and motivation. And but that confirmation that I know a lot of you are feeling, like you feel this call inside of you to do something, to be something, to say something, to start something, to create something. And you know it's right, but you keep shoving it down. So this is your invitation to let it out, to completely express like it's time. Like 2024 is the time. The stars are aligned quite literally. And you could still use some excuse. So just it's time to take action, y'all, even if it's small. Or if you're called to take big action like I did, that's what you're being asked to do too. Like whatever your truth is, whatever that intuition is telling you, your soul, you got to answer that call, man, or else it's going to keep eating you alive. And yeah, like when I answered that call, I signed 4 clients in a week, and I was like, okay, there's something here. But to be honest, like I've definitely gotten my head over the months, over the years in certain ways, and I've tapped back into my heart again and again and again. But something feels similar about that moment for me right now, where I don't know where I'm going, but I know how to get there. And to me, it's following that fear, following what my heart is telling me to do, and walking through that fear because I know what I desire is on the other side of that fear. Um, and again, I invite you to come with me, whether it's energetically listening to this podcast through Instagram, or if you want to come join the retreat and join the mentorship, that's also the invitation to say yes to that too. So, um, yeah, like part of what I started this podcast with, right, is the harsh truth of entrepreneurship. And it's like soul led entrepreneurship, right? It's like this heart centered leadership because it's much more than just entrepreneurship. Is like you're saying yes to the God given gift. And that's why it's so much more than just a business thing. Like taking typical business advice isn't going to work because you're doing something different than that. Like you're not just selling uh, a trinket on Amazon. And if that's your soul's purpose, then power to you. You're not just running an e-commerce business. You're, you know, like you're being asked to completely share your heart and expose it with the world. And I know that's scary, but that's who you are and that's what you're meant to do. So, with that said, I feel like that has concluded this podcast. And I know I didn't really get into a ton of my story, but I feel like it was exactly what it's supposed to be for you in this moment. And if you have any other questions or if you want to talk more about my journey or how I got through it, how I navigated it, and how I got here, please reach out to me on Instagram. If you don't follow me already, it's at the Fear Guy. And one other thing that I want to say is like, if you're not where you want to be yet, like that's okay. Like if you're not making thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions, like, and you're looking up to these people that do that and they did it quickly or whatever, that's okay. Like you're looking for your secret sauce. You're looking for your formula. Like you're not designed to follow everyone else's formula. So we each have our own unique success code and you're just looking for that. And I know how you find that is following your heart and doing what scares you because that's how your soul speaks through you. So, all right, y'all. Love you so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Please leave a review if your heart feels called to. All right, y'all. Peace.